Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out this afternoon to talk about data loss prevention in Microsoft Office 365. A couple of things that we're going to try to get a good view of today is the DLP, or data loss prevention capabilities for Microsoft Exchange. And just to put it into perspective, Microsoft Exchange 2013 Enterprise is the application that we're talking about. In Office 365, they use the 2013 Enterprise. If you want, or if you have Exchange on-premise, the requirement is both for the Enterprise version of Exchange 2013 as well as the Enterprise CALs. So just so you know, everything I say applies to the Exchange on-premise as well as in the cloud, with that caveat, having the appropriate Enterprise CALs. So without further ado, we're going to get kicked off. A little bit of the agenda. We're going to tell you a little bit about Champion. Obviously, we're the sponsors of this. Do it very briefly. We've then got a slideshow that goes through the different capabilities, how it affects back-end administration, as well as the user experience when DLP policies are implemented. We'll also talk about some of the newest offerings from Microsoft specifically related to DLP in SharePoint, both premise and cloud, and what's called document fingerprinting, which we'll talk about as we go forward. And we'll do our best to take care of it at the moment. So for those of you that are aware of Champion, some of the next slide is a little bit of repetition. For those of you that aren't, we just wanted to let you know a little bit about us. Champion is a 35-year-old systems integration house. I know you guys can read. I'm not going to read a slide to you. We focus, and my team, the online services team here at Champion, several years ago made a strategic direction to focus on everything cloud, for lack of a better word. We have become one of Microsoft's leading partners in the Office 365 world. We're an Azure Circle partner, and a significant percentage of the revenue is coming from Microsoft or Microsoft-related services. As you can see, we've helped migrate north of 1.4 million users into Office 365, clients in size from 5 users to 55,000 users, and we've done it all around the world. The latest focus is on further marrying of premise and cloud, specifically by taking advantage of the Azure capabilities. Last week, for example, we focused on Azure Active Directory Premium in this series, and coming forward we have a good number of Azure-related offerings. So we will be sending out invitations as well as the ability for you to download the presentations and any other collateral that we have. Moving ahead, I got to scare you or do some FUD or whatever you want to call it. We've all heard about the large retailers who've lost lots and lots of data. Some through email, some through other forms of social and digital hacking. But over the last 5 years, you can see, or 7 years, you can see some really significant losses that in certain cases, or in all cases, can be directly attributed to information that was sent out through emails with attachments or otherwise. We're all in a business that we need to protect our intellectual property as well as be responsible to our companies for personally identifiable information, as well as to maintain compliance as it relates to everything for our business. Data loss prevention in 365 is focused on helping you to identify, monitor in real time, and to protect the information within your organization. The primary goal here is to make it easy for your end users to understand when they may be breaking policy, as well as to give you, from a security officer perspective, from an IT perspective, the ability to monitor what's going on, give the users the level of control they need, etc., without tying their hands and not allowing them to do work. So this is sort of a high-level understanding or overview of how a DLP environment works in Office 365. As an administrator, I have the ability to create policies. When users log into, in this case it's information workers, or end users, and I'll use them interchangeably, policies are automatically distributed based on the Exchange environment, Office 365 in this case. And these policies are then put in effect for both the Outlook Web Access as well as for the Outlook client. And depending on the version of the Outlook client, 2010, 2013, etc., will determine the level of friendliness you get. Obviously, 2013 is going to be the most. Now, when a policy is applied, users, or your end users, what exists that could possibly be breaking the policy, as well as an administrator, you're notified that this type of event is occurring, and you, as an administrator, have the ability to apply policies and what users are capable of doing on it. So what I just said, this is what it would look like to an actual user. So if I'm a user and I go to write an email, and I type in something very cryptic like Visa with 16 digits, okay, I then fill in the email. I put in the user's name, looks it up in the gal, and then finally what happens is you'll notice you've got policy tip showing up, and what I mean by that, it says, hey, you're breaking the policy. What do you want to do? Now, as I click, I can click on the policy tip, and what it's saying to me is that, look, this looks like a credit card. Do you really want to send a credit card via email? All of these messages that you see are customizable. They've got pre-done ones, but you also have the ability to customize them for your individual groups, users, etc. Continuing on, you can then, as an administrator, and typically this is how we do it during the initial implementations, is we are doing it from a test perspective. So if I put a 111, which isn't a valid credit card number, I have the ability to say override the policy, and then the message would be sent to the user, but, and I'm not sure if you can see the verbiage that's there, but basically what it's stating is you can override, but this event, 1, will be notified, 2, recorded, 3, you are subject to having to have a conversation with your boss or manager or whoever to make sure that you're not breaking corporate policies, okay? And obviously, from a test perspective, that's very good. From a corporate policy, you then have the ability to change and enforce it. In other words, users do not have the ability to override. In that case, they would actually have the ability to send a note to compliance or whatever to get approval to do it or not to do it. But it's a reasonably straightforward, easy to use environment that the users aren't having to relearn or having to figure out what they're doing wrong. This tells them. So, and you can customize it to your end users. So, and the way that works is, for those of you out there that are Exchange administrators or working with Office 365, you spent your share of time dealing with transport rules, etc., in the Exchange server, and this is nothing more than an enhancement to the transport rules that we put, looking for content, whether it's part of the email or part of attachments, etc., that are contained. You have the ability to look for documents of all types, look for any type of text, regular expression, other patterns, etc. And at that point, you have the ability to, if the DLP system doesn't recognize whatever's attached, okay, based on the level of compliance that you're looking to maintain, you can either stop that user from sending until they get approval, or have the message sent but held, and someone in the IT or admin or compliance has to be able to review it and send it. And if you really want to go to the nth degree, you can actually then encrypt it such that the recipient has to go in and authenticate who they are. So it's quite comprehensive. It requires some administration, but bottom line is as you develop your policies, you'll get better at it. You're able to take advantage of the policies that have been created and provided by Microsoft, and most importantly, to help your legal and compliance teams to meet your individual corporate requirements. You have the ability to download the XML documentation, the DLP policies that have been provided to you from Microsoft and customize them for your individual organization. So it's something that Microsoft has gone the extra step to make available to you, the ability to customize the current ones that they give you. It also allows you to use third-party libraries, etc. I often run across the need for those individual libraries for organizations in the ITAR or arms trafficking industry when they're looking, because they have some very specific compliance requirements. So moving on, Microsoft is getting ready to release a new management interface. And what that means is they're going to centrally be able to apply data loss prevention DLP policies to all of the applications that exist within the Office 365 environment. Exchange, SharePoint. It also can be applied to the OneDrive environment that is in the cloud. All of these features, all of these enhancements will be rolled out and tested in the Microsoft backend environment. They will then be rolled out in a staged manner, as for those of you that are in 365 you're familiar with, and those features will be made available to you as soon as they're tested. But the good news is that instead of having to maintain two sets of compliance rules, instead of having to look at it from different points of view, Microsoft in the Office 365 world, specifically to DLP, is providing a central console, which will be available very shortly, like in the next 60 days, for you to manage the DLP policies. So it means a lot, and it can truly help you simplify meeting your requirements. So, and in the DLP world, there are different levels of security. There are different reactions to the data that's being sent. So, for example, the email that I sent, or that we were using as an example a few minutes ago, where it had 16-1. For those of you that are in the credit card business, you're familiar with the checksum, where it adds up the numbers and does some magical mystery math, where it understands if this is or is not a real credit card. Then you can apply rules that state this user can send out these credit cards. You can put limits, numbers, etc. on it, but then you can choose what happens when the user is sending out data that needs to be or is under our compliance regulations. Do you want to send it, alert? Do you want to encrypt it? Do you want to allow them to override rules or not? Or do you want to block it? These are the things that we've been talking about. This is just an example of how Microsoft is developing the flexibility to allow you to, while applying a very strict compliance code to the organization, it's not a matter of on and off. It's a matter of test, retest, and be able to apply the appropriate sets of rules by the end user and what he or she needs to be able to do their job. That's where we're at, policy enforcement, but policy enforcement with intelligence. Moving on. As I talked about a little bit ago, there are pre-done templates in the DLP environment. Okay, there are pre-done templates. There's a couple hundred of them. I don't know the exact number, but they range from stuff for Argentina to the United States and all the countries in between. There are a significant number of policies, and if we have time, I will pop into the browser environment and I can actually show them to you. The one that's on the screen right now is specifically related to PCI. Okay, we've been talking about credit cards. PCI is one of the #1 drivers for organizations maintaining compliance. Obviously, HIPAA is at the top of the left, or personally identifiable information. At the same level, you have SOX, Japanese SOX, etc., to help organizations maintain their security as well as to maintain their ability to talk openly to the financial Wall Street without ending up in jail or having to pay large fines. So it's a win-win from that perspective, especially when you're talking about publicly traded companies or organizations that are looking to improve the level of compliance that they're providing without having to go out and hire 5, 6 people to focus on this, develop it, spend a couple $100,000 implementing it, This is not a turn it on and you're done. This is a turn it on and you get 75 to 90% of the way there, and then you have the ability to customize. Focus on improving what the DLP policies are doing for your organization to meet your business needs versus focusing on how do I get this integrated into Exchange, how do I get this integrated into SharePoint, et cetera, et cetera. So it's what do we focus on, the business, or do we focus on the technology? From a policy perspective, okay, as I talked about, there are predefined rules, et cetera, that have been created by Microsoft. Again, you have the ability to either create your own or customize some of these rules, all of these rules, excuse me. You also, again, have the ability to purchase libraries or find libraries that may be open or available open source and import them into the Microsoft DLP. So if you have specific policies that you want to implement, you have the ability to create those. Okay, it's quite impressive, and there are organizations out there, again, who make these libraries for regex, regular expression, searching for every possible combination of numbers and letters, etc., to help keep the organization safe. Okay, and again, you have the ability to edit, update, add, and obviously remove things that may have been put together. I'm not a big fan of removal because Microsoft, frankly, their legal team has invested significant amounts of money in helping to get this to a point where it's a good value add. Just a few of the compliances that are being focused. You've got personally identifiable information, financial, and health. Okay. Now you'll notice under the health, okay, they've got HIPAA, they've got UK health and Canadian health. And you'll notice below it where it talks to rely on partners like us or independent software vendors. Okay, companies that are building specific libraries to help meet the needs of different types of healthcare in the types of information that they're going to be looking for. Because obviously terminology in the medical field is relatively unique, and that's where we have the ability to purchase and or import libraries to help you meet those HIPAA, high-tech, etc. regulations. So as you can see, we've got things like Graham Leach, you've got Safe Harbor from Europe, etc. Again, and these are just some of the countries that are some of the larger countries that are shown in the 365 DLP environment. And what I wanted to do was just talk a little bit about how the DLP works. Okay. Again, using the same example email with the numbers I've got creative 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What it's going to be doing is it's going to be looking at the content of the message. Okay. It's going to be looking based on regular expressions, Visa, 16-digit numbers, etc. Okay. But then it's going to be applying intelligence to it, specifically things like functional analysis. Do these 16 digits meet the credit card standard, okay, for a checksum? Is this a valid credit card or not? Okay. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, repeated 4 times is not. It also looks at additional content in the email, and in this case, again, I'm being very creative, Visa. Okay. Well, Visa is a pretty straightforward word. Typically focuses on credit cards or can I get in or out of a country. Finally, it's looking at expiration dates. You can look for other terminologies, etc. And then you can apply, what do I do with this now? Do I pop up and say, this looks like a credit card number, what do you want to do? Or if, for example, the credit card number doesn't meet or doesn't do checksum, you can not notify. It's still going to be looking at it in the background, but the user won't be notified. So it's really it's a business decision that will be something that you will update as you get more and more experience with it, looking for specific terms, phrases, etc. But it is a great place to go, and this is how the analysis works. The analysis can be extremely detailed. The good news is this type of analysis, especially for an organization that's sending 1,000, 10,000, whatever emails an hour, okay, the processor power, the routing, this is done for you in the case of Microsoft up in their cloud. First time ever, I've turned on journaling forever in Office 365. I did it a few years ago, but the point is that it doesn't cost me anything extra from a storage perspective or a processor perspective. On my premise, I would never do that because I would have to go out and double or triple my storage and double or triple my processor requirement, and then manage all of that going forward, and watch my Exchange server sit at 90% utilization, which is always fun. So anyway, that's some of the value of going to the back-end Microsoft. Now, this is something very, very unique in how DLP can add extra value to your organization. Every organization that I deal with has proprietary information, okay? And that can be basic standard stuff, like in the example, we've got accountants with their 1040s and 1040 short forms, etc., legal firms with their internal documentation, etc. Okay? The point of the fingerprinting is to allow for the DLP system to understand the content of the documents that may be attachments or obviously pasted or whatever into an email. The point of my rant is you can set up PDFs, Words, Excel, whatever types of documents with an understanding of the type of content that's in it, and then apply a DLP policy to say, look, this is sensitive information. It could be, again, personally identifiable. It could be patent. It could be other corporate-specific security data related to going out and buying or acquisition of companies, etc. The type of stuff that you don't want out in the world, or you may not want out in the world. Okay? It's not all just that spreadsheet with the payroll numbers in it. These are the stuff that help grow the organization that we, as IT professionals, need to keep an eye on. So, document fingerprinting, again, it's based on rules and it's based on repetition, but in this example that I put up here, we're talking about patents, okay? Patents are something that organizations spend millions and millions of dollars on each year to apply for, paying for the lawyers, and as well as maintain their patents and make sure that other folks out there aren't stealing their information, going into the patent, making a change enough to get it through for copyright. And within the environment, within the fingerprinting capability, again, using similar type logic that we talked about on the credit card, etc., it has the ability to look for terms. It has the ability to look at the actual document for the content. So if I'm sending out a blank, quote-unquote, document for review and fill out inside or outside of my organization, great, I'll let it go. But when I'm sending out a document that has company-specific information, descriptions, what's next, etc., I then want to take a longer look at it and determine, do I want this going to Todd in my organization? Do I want this going to George at gmail.com, whoever I'm sending it to? And I very well may want to, okay? He may be my lawyer, who knows? But the point of that is, again, to give you the ability to apply logic to the documents that, how many times a day do you hear that my email is my file cabinet, okay? How many times a day do we hear that, oh my God, my email box is so out of control because I have 10,000 documents in it and I can never find any. So this gives you a way to, one, track and stop those types of documents that don't belong outside the organization unless you know about it. Two, overlay additional levels of compliance and security to protect the company's intellectual property and strategy. So, and when you look at how these examples work, we're looking at the terminology within the documents themselves. Documents like this typically, or oftentimes, especially, value of document fingerprinting and how it integrates into the SharePoint environment, and finally, how it extends into the DLP, not only from an email attachment perspective, but it also leads us back to SharePoint. And for those of you that are into SharePoint, SharePoint is a very powerful, some might say annoying environment, but when you implement SharePoint, when you utilize terminology and governance, etc., in the SharePoint environment, that leads us to the next step, data loss prevention. Okay, the ability to control what data is held in SharePoint. SharePoint, in many organizations I go into, it is something that there's 100 or 500 team sites or whatever that have been built, and the last time any of them have been touched was a while ago. Within the SharePoint environment, and specifically as it relates to data loss prevention, you have the ability to apply the rules, the content, looking for credit cards, whatever information, apply to all documents that are, of course, in email and, by extension, in SharePoint, okay? Such that I go into SharePoint, I upload an Excel or I upload a Word document with a boatload of 16-character numbers in it, and they all checksum and et cetera, well, I need to be notified of that, okay? I'm looking for other keywords, phrases, regular expressions, etc., okay? I can then apply both within the document as well as without the document from a sending from or sharing to. I can then apply the DLP protection to the organization. So, and that's not just for me sharing to somebody external, it's for me sharing to someone else within my organization, okay? Those types of DLP policies need to be put in place not only for information that you're concerned about sharing externally, but there are also things that you don't want to be sharing willy-nilly with employees, okay? Again, I fall back to the same old payroll. We all know how much that the CEO makes more than us, but sometimes you get annoyed when you see how much. So again, when you run the reports, when you look at it, you have the ability to pull all of the different information and then by extension apply security policies and what people can do, what people can't save up there, and more importantly or most importantly, who can they share it with, both internal and external. So that's a brief overview of DLP and SharePoint. That is something that is coming out. I wanted to touch just a little bit more in the last few months, and we talked earlier about the user experience. This is a new enhancement in 2013, Wave 15, or the newest version of 365, is where DLP is being supported in Outlook Web Access. Works very similar, okay, to the way that it would work in Outlook. Same functionality, same capabilities, all apply, whether you're in Outlook or OWA. So for those of you that are considering a move to web apps for Outlook, or even for Excel, Word, PowerPoint, etc., with the functional capabilities of the web apps now, it's worth some investigation. So each of these policies, all of these policies, can be and controlled automatically. You don't have to make any changes to the mobile devices as well, whether it's the iPad, BlackBerry, or Windows Mobile, or whatever device you got out there. Finally, when you're talking, so at the end of the day, okay, the goal is to provide you and your organization real-time understanding of what type of information is going through email, what type of information is being made available in SharePoint, who has access to it, okay, when policies are being broken in your organization, how those policies are being addressed as we go forward. So, and finally, when your compliance team or your legal team or the guy who's got to write the check when something gets out that shouldn't get out shows up, you have the ability to prove exactly what you've done, understand what, if any, policies were changed to allow something to occur. We have to protect our organization, but we also have to make sure that we can prove it, why we're doing something, why we're doing it this way, and why the organization is better for it. So data loss prevention has been a four-letter word because it's significant. It's not an insignificant. DLP, in this case, is focused on email and document libraries within the SharePoint or OneDrive environment. It is provided to you as a service that you can get through Microsoft Office 365. From a licensure perspective, in Office 365 you have to own either Exchange Plan 2 licenses or Enterprise 3/4 licenses. And as I said earlier in the call, on-premise is Exchange Enterprise 2013 with the requirement of the Enterprise, which can significantly increase the cost of your Exchange licensure. So if you have Enterprise, you're in good. A little bit more detail. This is actually when something is sent. If a user sends something that is breaking policy, or you're allowing him or her to send anyway, this is the type of report that's going to be delivered to you. It's going to talk about the message. It's going to talk about the who. It's going to talk about the what and where it is breaking the policy, and you have full. You're being notified of this via email, and obviously based on the level of complexity or the level of security that you choose to apply based on the type of rule, this notification will come and say, hey, Todd sent an email, it's got a credit card number. You allowed Todd to say send anyway, versus this email was sent by Todd, you said hold it, notify him that we're holding it, and it will have to be reviewed and sent. And again, all of these messages can be customized by your team to make it simpler for your users to get more comfortable with it, and understand that your organization, from an IT perspective, from a line of business perspective, wants to not only protect your clients, but the employees as well, because the last thing we want to do is end up on the front page of a newspaper saying our 80,000 employees' personal information ended up on God knows what. Enhancements, customization. The nice part about the Office 365 environment is that it has been made, or it has been delivered with the ability to do API integration. So for those of you that may have on monitoring solutions, you may have on DLP solutions, that instead of trying to take your DLP that may be network-based, you want to take it, or you want to connect this to 365 and connect that into a single reporting mechanism. Microsoft has allowed you and has provided APIs to connect such that you can deliver a single report that looks at your entire environment. Okay? You also have the ability to enhance the functional capabilities of it utilizing the PowerShell environment and creating custom rules and applying them to the environment in the cloud. So it's open, it's honest, it's reasonably straightforward to use. A couple of specific facts about where it is now and what's going on. 3 months ago, the policy tips, etc., did not work either in the OWA or mobile, so you would turn them off. Okay. The enhancements now support OWA. They're looking to add, or they're just getting ready to roll out the DLP for SharePoint, which is being delivered next week, and additional levels of DLP policies are being constantly added to the environment. So if they don't have it today for your specific compliance requirement, check again tomorrow and it'll probably be. Interesting question that was asked is, all right, I'm Exchange 2013 Enterprise on-premise. I have my Exchange 2013 Enterprise CALs. How fast will I get these types of enhancements? Okay. Typically, and this is interesting, but we're expecting the Exchange 2013 on-premise to be 1 to 3 months behind the Office 365 cloud, just because they have a larger test environment, larger test bed, because they start the primary test. Obviously, they go through a lot of alpha and beta, but they're on a 90 feature rollout. Microsoft employees, their 70 or 80,000 employees, are their beta. Okay. They then begin rolling it out both in the dedicated and on a limited basis in the Office 365 non-dedicated environments. Okay. Obviously, they look at it, they manage it, but they're doing it in small chunks instead of service packs. So these features show up, and the typical timeline for these new features can be anywhere from 30 days to In certain cases, I've seen clients wait as much as 4, 5, 6 months for new enhancements that were coming out, just because when you're looking at an environment that has 10+ million mailboxes, and you got to go around the world, those rollouts take some time. So last thing they want to do is have, or they want to minimize, if it's going to happen, any kind of service interruption. So we are now at the Q&A phrase. I don't know if there's any other questions in the text. We are right at 45 minutes after the hour. I have included a couple of slides that have some resources for more detail if you want to go into the 2013, and I know that our marketing team will be making these slides available to you for download. And then finally, and I hope nobody was writing really quick, try to get those links down, because I promise we'll make them available to you. But as an organization, our sister company MessageOps, we are the sponsors of this. We have recently rolled out a new Office365links.com. If you have any questions about Office 365, every third-party link, etc., training, all kinds of cool stuff is there. I recommend you take it. We also post a lot of information on this webinar, previous webinars, and upcoming on our MessageOps.com website. Well, I hope everybody, I appreciate everybody's